Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole. We're breaking down each of the SEC football games in week 7 from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores visiting the South Carolina Gamecocks on Saturday afternoon in Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina. This game is slated for a 4 p.m. Eastern kickoff and will be televised on the SEC network. From a betting perspective, this game opened with South Carolina as a 16-point favorite, and as the week's gone on, the Gamecocks have moved up to an 18.5-point favorite as of the recording of this video. The over-under, on the other hand, has stayed pretty firm. It opened at 50.5 and stays there as of Thursday afternoon. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, is this the most exciting SEC East matchup of the week for you?
It is. I mean, you like the best in the SEC matchups if we get out Alabama, Georgia, but this is my 13 and 14 in the SEC this year. So those are always interesting just because, you actually get to see a competitive game sometimes out of those two teams. So we'll see if this one turns out to be competitive. But Nick, tell us what weather we can look forward to, if there's any injuries, and then what about Nick's news and notes?
Sure. So we'll start with the weather. In Columbia on Saturday afternoon, we're looking at a forecast of about low 80s for temperature. But the thing to watch for in this game is the wind. The forecast as of right now is showing between 13 and 16 miles per hour of wind during this game. And as Christopher likes to point out on these videos, anything over 10 miles an hour from a wind standpoint is something that could impact the total of the game from a kicking and throwing standpoint. So as you're making your bets on this game, make sure you watch this one right up till kickoff to see what your wind situation is going to look like and bet accordingly. On the injury side of things, actually, it was a pretty clean week for most of these, for both of these teams. Most of these guys should be playing, and there's nobody new that's definitely going to be out. We'll have a couple of questionables that you may want to watch on either side as game day arrives, see who travels with Vanderbilt and things like that. On the news and notes standpoint, I'd like to start with Vanderbilt and just say this is perhaps the last good chance for Vanderbilt to win a game this year. They're coming off a 42-0 loss to Florida. And South Carolina is also coming off a 45-20 loss to Tennessee. But the Commodores have won 2 games this season, which, by the way, is 2 more games than they won in 2020. So I suppose it's progress, even if they have lost to an FCS team along the way. But they don't have a conference win yet, and they didn't win a conference game last year, obviously. They're battling sort of a long drought in terms of conference wins. And when you look at the schedule ahead for them, save for maybe a really bad Missouri defense, this may be the best chance for the Commodores to get in the win column this season. But they're also on the road, and they're not nearly as physical as South Carolina. So I don't know that I get my hopes up for them. And then on the other sideline, let's talk about South Carolina and how they performed in this series specifically. They've quietly kind of dominated Vanderbilt in recent seasons, which might surprise some people because historically speaking, Vanderbilt's had one of its better decades, 10 to 12 years in program history. You'd have to go back to the 30s and the Dan McGugan era for finding a better run of Vanderbilt football, believe it or not. But through it all, whether it be finishing in the top 25 a couple times with James Franklin, beating Florida, beating Georgia, beating Tennessee several times, both with Franklin and with Derek Mason. The one thing that they did not do during that period is beat the Gamecocks. South Carolina has won 12 consecutive games in this series. And you'd have to go back to 2008 and Bobby Johnson for the last time that Vanderbilt has snuck up and beat the Gamecocks. So if you're trying to bet this game and looking for a money line move on the Commodores, I wouldn't be so sure that they're as close as you might think they could be against a team that probably will finish 5th or 6th in the East. Christopher, from a betting perspective, what are you seeing from Vanderbilt and South Carolina that'd help you get a lean on this game?
Yeah, well, Nick, first of all, I got to say I won from a spread standpoint the Florida Vandy game last week, and you lost that, but you deserve the win there. It was one of those where you were on the right side and just got the wrong result. Vanderbilt had drives that reached the Florida 10, the Florida 23, the Florida 36, the Florida 1, the Florida 8, and the Florida 45. And they got 0 points. The 3 missed field goals, interception, 2 turnover on downs. Now, Florida's defense is 18th in EPA per play and 12th in SP+. and Vanderbilt still had that many drives go into plus territory, even though they didn't score. South Carolina is 19th and 43rd. So the Gamecocks have a good defense, but it's probably a little bit worse than Florida's, considering who they've played and who Florida's played. So if Vanderbilt can just finish some drives or just make a field goal, expect them to have a better score in this game. On the other side of the ball, the Gamecocks finally have a shot to hang a big offensive number against an FBS opponent. I know they did against Eastern Illinois, but they've scored 20, 13, 10, 23, and 20 against FBS competition this season. And that 23 was against Troy, and they had a bunch of turnovers, including a defensive score in that game. So maybe time for South Carolina's offense to score more than 20 points in a game against FBS competition. This is sort of the Super Bowl for the South Carolina offense this season. I have seen Luke Doty look pretty decent running the ball. So we'll see when they have the lead if they can kind of expand upon QB runs in this game. South Carolina is 127th in EPA per snap on offense overall and on rushing plays on offense. And Vanderbilt is 104th on offense, but seemingly getting a little bit better, and 120th on defense and doing nothing. So a lot of really bad in this game. Certainly the Vanderbilt defense is maybe the worst. South Carolina offense and Vandy offense both are not great. And then the South Carolina defense is pretty decent. So we'll see how that turns out. Nick, who are you betting on this game and why?
So I'm going to start with the total. The win does have me a little bit concerned, if we're running into a situation where it impacts the way that the ball's thrown, the ball's kicked, things like that. But overall, I think what you said holds true no matter what the win. And it's the Vanderbilt's defense is not very good. So we should see some points from a South Carolina offense that has struggled. But again, this is a defense that they should be able to exploit. And then the hidden thing that I think you've uncovered for this game in terms of the total is that Vanderbilt actually moved the ball okay against Florida. And I think against South Carolina, they'll probably be able to turn that into some points, or at least enough points to get us over this 50.5. So I like 50.5 over as my lean in this game. And then on the side, I'm going to make a pick for the sake of our competition here, but I don't know that I'm making an actual money bet on either side of this. I would say I'm going to lay the 18.5 with South Carolina, just because I don't trust the Vanderbilt defense at all. And I'm not sure how you can trust the Vanderbilt offense, even if it's improved to the point at which they're going to cover such a relatively small number after watching them get blown out week after week in conference play. So I'm going to lay the 18.5, take the over. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm staying far away from this game with any of my dollars, not even betting $1 on this game. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I just mentioned to you that South Carolina's offense hasn't even scored more than 20 points against an FBS team. And now you're telling me they're favored by 18.5, maybe more by the time you're watching this. So that's kind of scary, even though I guess my official pick for the purposes of our show is going to be South Carolina minus 18.5. And then on the total, I am kind of with trepidation taking over 50.5 on that as well. But I mean, the last thing we need, you saw Joseph Bulovas kicking for Vanderbilt last week. Now we might see him kicking in 15 miles an hour wind. So not so sure that I'm super confident in that either. But, the one thing I've said on the other videos, and I'll say it again here, is if you do like the over and the forecast holds, I would anticipate that you'll have a chance to get 49 or maybe 48.5 as this number trickles down before kickoff if the forecast for strong winds continues to hold. So if you like the under, take it as fast and as soon as you can. And if you like the over, I would probably wait until close to kickoff to take that. But for Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you next week.